UFC Vegas 90 presented by MMAGANG. Listen, this card is absolutely trash. When I say trash, it is garbage. I mean, we have a good main event. It's a rematch. I'm hoping to see Chris Curtis win. I don't really like Brendan Allen, but outside of that, I really like the Trevor Peek fight. But outside of that, Dana White can't keep getting away with this. He's losing fans day by day. He wants the casual eye, but the casuals won't watch this. It's only the hardcores, and the hardcores are getting lower and lower by the day. You're losing an entire fan base by doing stuff like this. We have 300 next week. I get it. I'm ready. Can't wait for 300. But the last 4 weeks, I'm talking about some of the cards, okay. I like the UFC Mexico one, but outside of that, Mexico City, but outside of that, man, you can't keep getting away with this. And there's nothing we can do outside of like us not going to the fights or us not buying pay-per-views. It might get to that point where people stop. Dana White, count your days. I'm telling you, you don't have a long time giving us these absolutely atrocious cards, but it is what it is. Starting off, we have Trevor Peek versus Charlie Campbell. I like this fight. This is one of the fights I'm actually looking forward to. Trevor Peek is a guy that he goes all out, or was. Start off by saying was. Trevor Peek is a bit more defensive nowadays. I don't know what it is. Like, he got some finishes early on, and then he lost the decision. And then after that, I feel like he starts getting like, I want fighters to be defensively responsible, but at the same time, don't change your whole style. Trevor Peek is a move forward type fighter. He'll take one to give one, pause. But I don't see it. Like, that last fight was the fight that he lost the decision was like, I don't recognize that Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek moves forward. Trevor Peek bites down on his mouthpiece and moves forward. I don't see that anymore. Charlie Campbell, on the other hand, he's a good fighter, has a lost to Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan's okay. I mean, Chris Duncan lost to Manuel Torres. Manuel Torres is undefeated. There's some stuff going on to where it's like, that's not a bad loss. But come on, Charlie Campbell, good puncher, got power. If I were to pick this fight, I have to go Trevor Peek just out of sheer entertainment value. And I like Trevor Peek. And I don't care. Might be a little biased. I'm going with Trevor Peek. Moving on, we have Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Giagos. This is not even really that hard to pick, in my opinion. I'm going with Ignacio Bahamondes. Christos Giagos has lost. He is when you look up the word can, C-A-N, can, in term of sports, it is Christos Giagos. What are we even talking about? His best win is Ricky Glenn. Let's get that out the way. The guy is the definition of a can. If you're a UFC fighter that has any hope of making the top 15, you beat this guy. Like, he's lost to, I get these guys are top of the food chain guys, but he's lost to all of them. Armand, Charles Oliveira, name it. Gilbert Burns, he's lost to all of them. Ignacio Bahamondes, on the other hand, like, looking at him, I would pick him just sheerly because of how bad Christos Giagos is. He is a little bit taller for the weight division. He does have the range. Hasn't really lived up to kind of the stuff people were saying him when he was coming into the UFC. I'm going with Ignacio Bahamondes out of sheer disrespect for Christos Giagos. I say this fight goes all 3 rounds, and I say decision for Ignacio Bahamondes. Moving on. Morgan Charriere versus Chepe Mariscal. Now for this one, I'm going with Chepe Mariscal. They're both undefeated in the UFC. Outside the UFC, 19-9, fighting a lot of cans. Like, man, I gotta go with Chepe Mariscal. I like this fight with Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek is a guy that moves forward. Trevor Peek he's constantly moving forward. A little bit sloppy. Like, when you look at Trevor Peek fight, outside of like this fight, he was a little bit kind of sloppy and also a little bit too reserved. It was weird. He wasn't going forward as much as I like Trevor Peek to go forward. But still, I liked how Chepe Mariscal weathered the storm and got the win via decision. He did kind of fluke his fight with Jenkins. It was kind of fluky. It was an injury. It is a win. You have to count it as a win. In my eyes, it was kind of a fluke. But either way, he got 2 wins in the UFC. Morgan Charriere, on the other hand. Also, I think Chepe Mariscal just does everything better than Morgan Charriere. He's a better striker, in my opinion. He's a better grappler, in my opinion. Now, Morgan might have the better power. But as an overall MMA fighter, I'm going with Chepe Mariscal. They both haven't fought since September. Hey, this is as close to as a pick'em in this main card as it goes. I have to go with Chepe Mariscal, and I'm going by unanimous decision. Moving on, we got Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson. Now, the best thing Damon Jackson has done for his, not career, but his life is get that new hairline. Man, this guy, pause, but going to Turkey might have saved his life post-career. Now, talking about the fight, these guys have a lot of high-profile losses. Alexander Hernandez, on one hand, he's lost to Cowboy, he's lost to Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Moicano, like Billy Quarantillo. They both lost to Billy Quarantillo. If you're losing to Billy Quarantillo at this point in time, at this point of his career, you obviously don't have any title aspirations. You don't have any ranking aspirations. You're never going to be like somebody to where like, I want to fight Damon Jackson. I want to fight Alexander. It's never going to be that. And to be a co-main event, like, I don't want to trash these fighters. I'm a fan of not these two, but I'm a fan of fighting in general. I watch every prelim fight, even though they're all bogus. I'm still going to watch all of them. But like, don't give us stuff like this. You see what I'm saying? But as far as picking a fight, I'm going Alexander Hernandez. He has the win over Jim Miller recently. Stunk up a decision against Jim Miller. It is what it is, bro. You got to look at recently. Damon Jackson did just lose to Billy Quarantillo in his last fight. This isn't even tough in my opinion. I'm gonna go with Alexander Hernandez. Damon Jackson, good for you. You got a new hairline, I guess, but people forget that Alexander Hernandez flatlined Beneil Dariush. That's something that goes over people's heads. It was a long time ago, yes, but he has capabilities of the KO power. He has okay submissions. He can bite down and get a boring decision against Jim Miller. I'm gonna have to go with Alexander Hernandez. I'm not picking I'm just gonna pick Alexander Hernandez out of sheer recency bias, prisoner of the moment, I guess. You beat Jim Miller, who's extremely old, but Jim Miller is Jim Miller. He is coming off of some flat lines here. Let's not act like Jim Miller's not that good anymore. Jim Miller's still solid. I still have Jim Miller winning at UFC 300 over Bobby Green. That win holds a lot of weight recently. When you look at Damon Jackson, Pat Sabatini, I can't go with there, bro. I'm going with Alexander Hernandez, and I'm going Alexander Hernandez by unanimous decision. Moving on, we have for the main event, Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis. Now, I'm going with Chris Curtis. Let me tell you why. People look at Brendan Allen as some, top of the food chain guy. Brendan Allen has been fighting absolute cans. When I say can crusher, tomato can crusher, he goes by the name of Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen has good jiu-jitsu. I can't lie, very good jiu-jitsu. His offensive jiu-jitsu is really good. If he has your back, it's pretty much over. Coming off the Paul Craig win, it doesn't really say much because Paul Craig is not a threat on the feet. If somebody is a threat on the feet and has okay takedown defense, Brendan Allen has kind of struggled. Brendan Allen, his striking is, I won't say abysmal, I won't say bad. His striking is okay. He's good enough to where if he can get you against the cage, if he can take you down, if he can get mount, if he can take your back, his striking is good enough to get him there. Example, like a Khabib. His striking is a little better than Khabib. Khabib later on, his boxing was getting actually solid good, but Brendan Allen's striking is good enough to get him to where he wants to go, which is the submission. Chris Curtis, on the other hand, extremely good boxer, extremely good body shots, pause. He does get frustrated a lot when people don't want to engage with him. Now, Brendan Allen made a mistake last time. He was in the pocket, was left right open after I think, was it a right cross? Whatever it was, he was chin was wide open for a counter hook. I got Chris Curtis. I don't see how the only way Brendan Allen can win is if he stays distance in a boring decision. Outside of that, I think Brendan Allen can catch him. I think Brendan Allen will rack up enough points for a decision. If it were to go to a decision, I think, not Brendan Allen, what am I saying? I think Chris Curtis, if it goes to a decision, Chris Curtis can rack up points. It's like the Chito Vera effect. Chito Vera's problem is if he doesn't get the knockout or the finish, he's losing on points. I think Chris Curtis can rack up enough points to where if it were to go to a decision, he can win a decision. But I'm going out on a limb. I say Chris Curtis finish again. We seen Vicente Luque last week, who was like this overwhelming favorite over, even though I love Vicente Luque, over Joaquin Buckley. And Vicente Luque kind of quit, but we've seen a lot of like upsets happening. I'm going with Chris Curtis by finish. I think he gets, not in the same kind of way, but Brendan Allen is a guy, he doesn't want to be in the boxing range, but Chris Curtis is going to push the pace on him. Marc-Andre Barrieu didn't want to come to the middle. That's why Chris Curtis was mad. Chris Curtis is a guy that he wants. If you're not pushing the pace, he's going to be mad. Like, come over here, come fight me, let's spot. But I think Brendan Allen's confident enough to where and stupid enough to where he wants to prove that it was a fluke, and he will be in boxing range. I think he gets a lot of body shots. That's Chris Curtis, and Chris Curtis catches him. I'm going to say another hook, and that is that. Chris Curtis for the finish. The card is absolutely abysmal, but what can I say? I'm looking forward to this fight. I'm looking forward to the Trevor Peek fight. It's going to be an okay fight night, I guess. But Dana White, count your days, because I don't know, man. We can't keep... These are absolutely garbage fight nights, but hardcores are still going to watch it. I got Chris Curtis by finish, and that is that.